Hey, this is Team Third Phase with our final update for Studio 1 with our game Vacation of Valor. Our group mates are Alex Sorzenbach, Matthew Treese, Ryan Oswalt, and Rob Williams.
As soon as the player loads into the game, the first thing they will be greeted with is the main menu. This main menu showcases our custom logo made by Rob and an early screenshot of our main character Chroma, who was also designed by Rob. The main menu and the HUD throughout the game will feature custom UI assets, with the blue spiky borders created by Rob, and design and animations of the UI created by Matthew. All UI and HUD elements have also been scripted by Matthew. In the main menu, the player can start the game, go through some options, and quit the game. If the player goes to options, then they will be able to change the volume of the music, change the difficulty of the game, or listen to the game's custom music created by Matthew. This option pairs nicely with volume controls, as the volume controls and custom music all tie in together in Matthew's Music Manager script. That script is also responsible for looping the custom music without replaying the intro of the songs again. As for difficulty, the player has 3 options which progressively get harder. Globally, these difficulties impact the amount of starting health the player has, as indicated by the hearts above the difficulty name. There are also changes to individual fights, such as how fast the platforms and bosses move in turbulent teacups and how quickly the boss picks up its head in Violent Violet. Moving on to the HUD, there are elements of it that are global, such as the animated health bar, which animates itself building up at the start of the level, taking damage and restoring health. A pause menu has been implemented with options relevant to either the hub or the boss battles. There are other HUD elements unique to the hub and unique to fights that will be showcased throughout the video. Once the player progresses past the main menu, they will load into the Park Hub. The Park Hub serves to connect each boss together and give the player a slower change of pace before being thrown back into the fast-paced boss encounters. Each boss fight serves as a separate section or attraction in the park, so the entry point for each boss fight will have a unique banner and some unique assets advertising the attraction, most of which were provided by Rob. The hub also features the same cartoony skybox shown in the main menu, which was also created by Rob. Around the park, the player can collect 10 golden tickets, which were scripted and implemented by Ryan. The tickets spin and pulsate, and they will not respawn after being collected. One of the tickets can be at the top of a simple platforming challenge in the center of the hub, also made by Ryan. In the hub's HUD, Matthew implemented a counter for golden tickets in the bottom left corner.
As Matthew mentioned, our player model was built by Rob and animated by him with the help of Mixamo. The player controller was coded by Alex. The highlights include that the forward movement is always based on the rotation of the camera, while the player model will always face the direction of movement. The player controller also includes an anti-clip measure for the camera in order to prevent wall peeking. When anything, player or enemy, takes damage in this game, there are some iframes following the damage. This was a joint effort between Matthew, Ryan, and Alex. Since the hub is on the larger side, we added a fast travel system that reuses a respawn system, coded by Alex. It takes a player pref and resets the player to the location and rotation of the corresponding game object in the scene.
The first boss encounter we will showcase is Turbulent Teacups. The concept of this boss fight is that the park's teacups attraction has gone crazy and the player must defeat 3 rampaging teacups. In this fight, the ground beneath the player will be constantly spinning, and some will spin in different directions than others. The platforms also emit colored lights that cycle back and forth between blue and pink. Furthermore, the boss's attacks also emit light, and the bloom post-processing effect has been added here and in every other scene to amplify and scatter the light. The fight takes place in the courtyard of the castle seen in the hub. The boss fight itself was coded by Alex, with Matthew coming in to adjust values for balance. There are 3 phases to this fight. In the first phase, the teacups will jump around the platforms and spawn a few damaging beams on the platforms. In the second phase, the teacups will create shockwaves after jumping and spawn more beams. In the third and final phase, the teacups will jump 3 times back to back, creating a shockwave each time, and more beams will spawn. The phases change when any one of the teacups hits a certain amount of health, and the platforms rotate faster and faster as each phase progresses. The teacups immediately jump away after being attacked, and the player will take damage and respawn as they fall off the platforms. On harder difficulties, the teacups have more health and the platforms spin faster. The teacups also will jump around faster and the shockwaves extend further. The rotating floor asset was created and scripted by Matthew, the shockwave asset was created and scripted by Alex, and the teacup asset was provided by Rob, and the music was created by Matthew. If you lose a fight, a defeat splash will show on the screen, and you will be returned to the hub. After you complete a fight, a victory splash will display, your stats will be displayed, and you will be awarded a score and a rank. After that, you will be returned to the hub. When you approach that boss again, your best stats will be displayed. Your health will also match the amount of health you left with. Around the hub, there are health pickups that you can use to restore your health before entering the next fight.
The labyrinth is procedurally generated, and every time the level loads in, it creates the labyrinth, following specific rule sets. And if it doesn't follow the proper rule set, it will relaunch the scene until it's able to create a labyrinth that does follow the proper rule set. The rule sets being that there must be 3 heart rooms that spawn every time, and no heart room may spawn directly next to each other. It also checks to make sure that these null rooms never spawn completely surrounding the heart rooms or player spawn room. Because if the player spawn or heart room is completely surrounded, making it isolated from the rest, then that would create a dead state where the game is unplayable. So if there are any dead states, or if the proper amount of spawn rooms and heart rooms do not spawn, then the game will relaunch until it creates a map that properly functions. One of the best parts about Living Labyrinth is that the rooms you enter will change into different rooms once you depart. So, for example, I've entered this axe room with its own unique set of enemies. And once we enter a different room and walk far away enough from that previous room, it will transform into an entirely different room. What was once an axe room is now a spike room with a different set of enemies to attack you with. This is made to be, in the truest sense, a living labyrinth. There are 3 enemy types in the game: the towers that shoot bullets, the tentacles that slam down when you get too close, and the slimes that just run right at you. All 3 of these enemies can be damaged and killed by the player. The player wins the game by exploring the labyrinth, surviving the trials, and destroying all 3 hearts that are hidden within.
Moving on to the Violent Violet boss fight, the environment around the player and music was made by Matthew, and the boss was coded, rigged, and animated by Alex. The boss has 9 health and will attack multiple times before he can be attacked. As the boss's health decreases, the player will have to survive more attacks before getting a chance at attacking the boss. Each attack can be one of 3 different attacks, but the boss will not repeat an attack twice. The 3 attacks include a sneeze attack, which spawns pollen around the player for them to dodge, a vine attack, which spawns vines in a circle around the player that move in and slowly grow in size, and finally, a sunbeam attack, which spawns shockwaves from the base of the flower while it fires a beam at the player. The final attack is always a head slam and resulting shockwave. Here, the head remains on the ground for the player to attack before rising. The number of attacks per turn and the length that the head remains on the ground depend on the difficulty selected at the beginning of the game.
Disco Danger is a challenge that tests the player's awareness and survivability. The player must dodge all of the cannons that are constantly shooting at them, while also dodging the telegraphed attacks that come out of the ground. Once every 15 seconds, a heart will spawn, and the player must make his way over to the heart and destroy it. Once 3 hearts have been destroyed, the player will win the game. But the catch is, after destroying a heart, the attacks come out faster, and more of them happen.